welcome back to another episode of For All Stages and Ages. Today I am joined by Kate Kurdziej. She is here to have a chat with parents and give them some advice on balancing work around their children, creating some work-life boundaries. And Kate has also recently moved to Spain, and I know that there are some parents out there that are perhaps looking at relocating. So Kate is going to hopefully give us some advice and some tips on maybe how to do that and what parents should probably look out for. So lovely to have you on the show, Kate. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucy. So I am a business consultant. I focus in the really sort of back-end side of things, structure, strategy, systems, getting people feeling organized, profitable, efficient. And for me, that sits really nicely with being a mum, because that's kind of what we have to be anyway. And actually, the balance, I know we're going to talk about this, Lucy, but the balance of business life and parenthood as well, it's kind of a baptism of fire into being super organized, especially if you weren't before. So a lot of the clients that I work with are mums. I predominantly work with women. That's who I'm drawn to work with. I think there's a lot of limiting beliefs that women have around making money or starting their own business or being really visible and actually being known for something. So that's who I love helping, but I really help them sort of get their business sorted and efficient and actually working for them. Massive advocate for putting your life first. That comes from not putting my life first for a very, very long time. And it actually took having a child. My son is 4 now, nearly 4.5. I think for a very long time, even before I had Oliver, my son, it was always putting work first, putting the corporate career first, putting everybody else first, bosses, friends, family, everyone else came first. And actually waking up one day and thinking, I don't get to do the things that I want to do anymore, because I've sort of built this container for myself where I don't even know what makes me happy anymore. I'm just almost living, going through the motions every day. So massive advocate these days, in a nutshell, for just being that life first business owner and parent as well, of like, what lifestyle do you want for your kids? What lifestyle do you want for you as well? And how can we get you there? That's what I feel really passionate about.
Yeah, I think what you said about the limiting beliefs, I think that's probably kind of twofold, I think, with parents. On that, especially if you've taken time off for maternity leave and then actually taking more time off to maybe, be a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, you do kind of get this feeling of, you're only mom and dad. You sort of forget who you were as a person or who you are as a person. And
I think sums that up really nicely, Lucy, is when Facebook profiles, like, you put the kid's face as your profile picture and you think, where's that mum? Like, where's that woman gone? She's a mum, but where's the woman gone?
Yeah, exactly. And you see it in the bios as well of people, and they'll generally, it'll be, rather than, in your bio, it'll be, I don't know, human resource exec, wife, mum. It's always mum, wife, human resource exec. It's always in that order. And it's like, that's absolutely fine. And I'm not knocking that, but it is kind of a bit of a, you forget who you were as that person. And it is like, mum is your main title, which it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we are other people. We are separate people as well as being mum.
I think that's really pertinent for me at the moment, Lucy, because like I said, my son's 4.5. I'm coming out of that little child stage now. And like my husband and I, we've decided not to have another one.
We're the same. I'm the same.
I'm very much in a one and done. What the hell was that? And I'm coming out the other side of it now, because we've made that decision not to have another one. I'm like, okay, life is getting easier, dare I say it? There's some sleep. There's, he can play by himself. He can talk. He can sit in a restaurant, all of these sorts of things. And I'm sort of coming out the other side of it. And like, to be quite frank, Lucy, I've had that realization recently of like, wow, I get a little bit of my life back. Like, he goes to preschool now full time, 5 days a week, which that's never happened before. He's either been on half days or just, the odd bit of child here and there. And I'm like, I've got this time. I don't want to just be working all the time, because that isn't also me. Like, who is Kate? And I think that's a really interesting question as a new parent, or even as an older parent. You might have had a couple of kids by now, and you're sort of thinking like, who is that woman that that was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Like, what does she like? She doesn't want to sit and watch Bluey, probably. What does she do? You know, what does she like to eat? What does she like to do? What does she like to spend her free time doing? Especially if you work or do have your own business, you can't spend all of your free time doing that. I mean, quite often when we have our business, it kind of becomes a strange hobby as well, and you do end up spending all of your time doing it. But again, that's not a sustainable way to live for the next 20 years. You have to have something else. And I think just coming back to that point of like, who is that person? Like, we do lose ourselves. And I think it's really important to just take a step back when you feel like you've got that bit of breathing space, like I do now, for example. Think, what do I have the same interests as I had before, or do I need to go and explore again? Because motherhood changes you so much that actually you might not like the same things anymore. There might be new things that you want to try. And I think that's really important, to give yourself space and grace to be able to do that and sort of find yourself again, because you're probably a different version, like a different iteration of person that you were before. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the journey, but also find the new version of yourself.
Yeah, 100%. When you started your business, how did you balance the demands of being a parent and trying to start and grow a business? What advice do you have for parents who are trying to start or grow a business with a child at home?
I think one of my biggest takeaways would be that you have to be really realistic about your expectations. You can't, my sort of main method of marketing is by Instagram and word of mouth. But, Instagram is very much, there's all different kinds of Instagrams that you could go on. But, I very much sit in like the business world of Instagram. And there's a lot of coaches and a lot of 20-something coaches that don't have kids yet, and they're living their best life and making so much money. And, they're able to dedicate 60 hours a week to their business and fly off to retreats and all of this sort of stuff. And it's like, if you get caught up in that comparisonitis, that is incredibly damaging to your business long-term success, but also to yourself, because you can't do that as a new mom. If you are running a business, and, my son was 5 months old when I started my business, and I was very much in the house, it was locked down, and I couldn't go and do all of these wonderful things. And actually being really realistic about, what do I want my business to provide me in the next, I had sort of a 5-year plan of what do I want this to look like. And I'm not quite at the end of that 5-year plan yet. It's only 4.5. So I'm about 4 years in. And for me, it's really important about like keeping my blinkers on and just thinking, what do I want out of this business? How can I build this business to create the life that I want for my family, and not look so much, we're tempted as humans to always like compare ourselves, but Instagram especially, but social media, as we know, is just a highlight reel. So if you're comparing your changing dirty nappies, not getting any sleep, not eating properly, not waking up at 5 a.m. and having green smoothies, that isn't real life. That is marketing most of the time. And, the more that you can just make sure that you keep your own mindset in check, that is my best advice, to actually just stay in your own lane. You can look what other people are doing, but just be realistic about what you are able to achieve, and the time that you've got. Like I said, when Ollie was 5 months, I started my business. So I was really just like nap times. And as we know, they don't work to schedule. So actually trying to organize calls and nap times, or do work when he's got to sleep in the evening. But I was breastfeeding. He was combination fed. So luckily my husband could help out at certain times as well. But, there's only so much you can do. And I think as women, especially, like, we want to do everything. And I think as women, we can do everything, just not at the same time. We have to just be really calm about what we can achieve in a certain amount of time, and not try and do everything all at once.
Yeah, I've touched on this before when I've been speaking with people, and said that, going back to the Instagram thing, that, and it is predominantly Instagram, because like you say, that's kind of the platform, is the very aesthetic kind of Instagram, where you do kind of get this kind of doubt. That I think the most important thing you can do for your business is to do what you said, which is to, why are you doing this? What are you doing it for? Is your goal to get £20,000 a month? If it is, that's fine, that's great. But if it isn't, and it is to just do, a holiday once a year, and that's all you need to make the money from, then write that down and just keep that in the back of your mind, because otherwise you are going to get that imposter syndrome, And you are going to get really bad imposter syndrome from judging yourself on other people. You sort of touched on it a little bit with obviously working with your baby when he was doing nap times and things like that. But how did you adjust your working routine to accommodate the different sort of stages of your child's development? Obviously, he's just over 4 now. So how is that once he started walking and talking and, they become a bit more of a problem then, don't they?
Like when he started walking, we were like, oh my God, no, I can't just sit him in a baby bouncer and wake up. But yeah, I would say that I was very much like wet behind the ears with motherhood. Like I've never looked after babies. I've looked after kids before. I was an au pair back in my 20s, but they were always like 4 years and up. They could always talk, they could always walk, they could, they were going to childcare, all of this stuff. So that very like baby toddler thing was totally new to me. And I'm sure for a lot of people that's the case. And it's kind of like, I don't know how to approach it. I don't know what I'm doing. And I suddenly felt really like on the back foot about stuff. I was one of these people that I'm like Googling stuff. Plus it was lockdown and COVID. So we didn't have like groups that we could go to. So there was a lot of stuff online. And I think I don't know what the word is, but I just sort of got on with it. And like whatever was happening, it was like, okay, now I need to, it was more of like reactive parenting, I guess. I was working out what is this stage. I didn't know what the stages were. We didn't have like health visitors coming. There was nothing like that. So I felt like I was just in the dark with it, which some people thrive on that kind of thing. For me, it created a huge amount of anxiety because I like that. Given what I do for work, like I like structure, I like systems, I like processes, I like to know what's coming next, be able to prepare, be able to read around it. And yes, you could read books and you can learn stuff, but it's always just theory compared to what you've got in front of you. And I think I just, on the back foot is probably a good way to describe it. So I'd love to say that I had some sort of brilliant system that I put in place. I was amazing at it, but I don't feel like I was. I feel like I just sort of did what I needed to do. Whenever he was napping, I worked. I remember breastfeeding while studying for a course at one point on my laptop because he'd fallen asleep on my boobs. So I just had my laptop open and I was reading. And I was just like, I think if I could do it again, which I won't, if I could do it again, if I could sort of know what I know now and go back, I don't think I would put so much pressure on myself to do everything all at once. We've already talked about that, like trying to do everything all at once. I would maybe try and enjoy motherhood a little bit more, but I think that's very easy to say in hindsight. I think when you're in the weeds of it and completely sleep deprived, like nobody can tell you how sleep deprived you're going to be. Like it's crazy how sleep deprived you are, but then you have to get on with your like day to day as well, whether you are working or you're trying to run the house or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And I think preparing for it is really hard. I think the best preparation you can do if you are in a partnership at that point, you've got a husband or somebody that's helping you in some way, is to just check in with them and make sure that, my husband and I said, whatever we say to each other at 4 a.m. when we're really sleep deprived and the baby's crying for milk, like whatever we say to each other, we don't mean it. Yeah. We hate each other in the moment. Hate them. That's not a real emotion. Like, that's not how you're actually feeling. So I don't think there's a way to actually like change with the stages. For me, I could just do a little bit more work or, put him, he ended up going into childcare for a couple mornings a week at 10 months old because my business was doing really well. And it was sort of like, it was this horrible juggling act of like the guilt of feeling like I needed to be with Ollie, but the guilt of feeling like I want to work. And I think, to be honest, Lucy, I fought that for a long time. I found that really difficult. I sort of like fought the sleep deprivation, felt a little bit resentful that I wasn't able to do the things that I wanted to do anymore. Like I was really passionate about running my business. I was very early to it. So there was so much to do, so many people to meet. And I think, in hindsight, it's just taking the pressure off and letting things grow because you can't be 100% present with your child if you're trying to be 100% present with your business or your work, I never wanted to be one of those mums that's always on their phone when their kid's there. Like for me, that was a huge thing. So I think just being really practical about what I can achieve those different stages, and it's like, right, the business is growing, let's put him in childcare for a couple of months. I didn't want to grow the business too much that he needed to go in childcare full time. So it was that sort of like stepping things. Do you know what I mean? Like sort of just stepping things up as they go and just reacting to what was in front of me and what the opportunities and options were at that point. Yeah. And you've
touched on it there with because obviously most parents, I think, will struggle with the guilt of it, like you say, at some point, either guilt of not feeling like they're good enough, they're not doing good enough with their children. I think we've all had that at some point, that we're failing our children. And especially when it comes to balancing work and parenting, do you put them in childcare? Do you give them to a nanny? Do you give them to a family member? And how did you navigate those feelings of guilt and feeling guilt? And what advice do you have for other parents that might be in a similar situation that are feeling that guilt at the moment?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think for me, with any sort of emotion, especially when it's attached to parenthood, it's just really important that you feel it, that you sort of acknowledge it and let yourself go through that feeling. And like, no feeling's a bad feeling. Guilt is because you want to be a good mum, or you feel like you might not be doing everything you can. And I would say that that's probably more of an opportunity to think, what could I do better, or what could I change to be able to give more time to my son or daughter at that point? I think those feelings, I remember dropping Ollie off at childcare at nursery for the very first time. This is when we lived in Yorkshire at the time, and I dropped him off at childcare. And it was COVID, so like parents couldn't go in or anything like that. So it was very much like you leave them at the door. So there wasn't that like, go in and I'll sit with them. There was no settling in session or anything. Well, there was a settling in session for him, but it was just me giving him to a stranger at the door and him going there and me going cry in the car for an hour. So it was like, there wasn't any sort of bring the parents in, let them see the nursery. Like, I never went inside that nursery. I've never seen it. No idea. So it's like, that was a really, that was a very unprecedented time, Lucy, wasn't it? That was a very strange way to raise a child. I know probably a lot of people listening to this podcast today probably had kids during that time. And it was a very odd time. And I think especially as a new mum at the time, I didn't have any understanding of what it should be like. So this for me was like, God, this is like everything so extreme. All these feelings are so extreme. And had they been in more normal times, they probably would have been deep feelings of guilt and all of this sort of stuff. But, even just those little things of not having an antenatal group to rely on, not having nursery to be able to go in and talk to the staff and see all the other kids and everything like that. Like, it just felt very disconnected. And that does not help with any feelings of guilt or, when everything's quite heightened emotions anyway. So I think it was a really tricky time. And I think easing the guilt, just to go back to your question, acknowledgement with the feeling and understanding why you're feeling that way, and understanding actually that everybody feels like that. And I think something that really helped me was just some like quote I saw on social media at some point, and it was like, if you're even feeling like that, it probably means that you are a really great man, because the people that aren't are probably not even feeling that guilt in the first place. So it's like just acknowledging that feeling, understanding where it's coming from. If there is anywhere that you can improve, brilliant. But if it's coming because you're feeling guilty because you're having to go out to work, well, your baby needs somewhere to live, they need to eat, all of these things, they're sort of like primary care needs to be checked off. And unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. We have to go and work to bring the money in. So there is a balance, and having a sort of understanding of, well, what can I do? Is it that I have to go out to work, so my son has to go to childcare? But actually, could I be better and not be on my phone in the evenings? Could I be more present with my child when I'm not working? Can I be better at that separation, that work-life balance? Can I do that better? And the answer most of the time is yes, because I think most parents do spend too much time on their phones. I catch myself a lot, and I'm like, Ollie sat right next to me and I'm on my phone. And I'm like, that's not good enough. And so I have to put it down. And it's like, just being aware of it, bringing that into your awareness makes that job much easier, and that reduces the guilt, because then your time with your child is much more connected and present. So then when you do drop them at childcare, you're not feeling that guilt that you spent 2 hours on your phone when they were sat right next to you wanting to play with you. So I think there's always a learning element when we go through those emotions as well.
I suppose it kind of falls with the guilt side of it. When parents have got a business that they're running, it's quite easy to kind of burn out a little bit from either from parenting. Parenting can cause burnout as well. You focus on parenting so much, and you, like you say, we're going back to the very first thing we were talking about, you forget who you are and you focus solely on work, and you sort of burn out on that sense. But you can also throw yourself into work on the other side and burn out from work. So it's very, very common to burn out as a parent. How do you ensure you get your self-care as a parent and maintain the business and your parenting responsibilities? Do you have any routines or systems?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I rely heavily on my tech and processes and the actual platforms that I use, lean into automations whenever possible, mainly so I don't have to keep everything in my head. Actually, there's always a misconception with my clients. They're like, oh, you've got such a good memory. I'm like, no, if you don't see me write it down,
Yeah.
gone to my brain immediately. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you don't see me writing it down. Okay, have you made a note? Because, that's what I rely on, because there's so many other things. You've got child admin, life admin, school admin, all of these other things that we have to keep in eye. So definitely let something else.
Isn't school admin just ridiculous? I've had my son started a week and a half ago in reception, and I've probably had close to about 20 emails so far telling me things that are going on. And
yeah, I know it's mad. And then they send you login details for a new platform, and I'm like, what? Just what? I don't even know what this platform is even for. I'm definitely going to forget the login details. Just pointless. What happened to just sending a letter home?
yeah.
Or having a meeting, like parent teacher meeting or something like that. Yeah, I know. We've got all parent WhatsApp groups and stuff like that, and it's totally, it's like all of my notifications for that are on mute. Like I'll see one of them in the playground. Like, oh, did you see such and such? And I'm like, no, not reading when it's all these messages. I'm not reading that. We'll just wipe the slate clean and I'll start again. But yeah, I think definitely relying on systems, tech as much as possible, because even if you're, there's so many great free versions of things. For example, you need somewhere to keep yourself organized. So how do you know what you're doing tomorrow? How do you know what tasks need doing in your business? How do you know what client tasks needs doing? So you need somewhere, task management, project management tool. I love ClickUp. I'm a ClickUp girl, but I also love Asana, Trello, Monday. It doesn't really matter what you're using, and they're all free. You can do free versions of them. You just have to pay for the good stuff, but you can still become very organized and efficient, making sure that everything is centralized in one place. And then making sure that you've got booking schedulers in place. You can buy something. You don't need Calendly at $14 a month. You can pay $29 for TidyCal, which is TIDYCAL, if you want it, because it's amazing. It's just like Calendly, but it's a $29 one-off purchase. So 2 months later, you're in profit. And it's just a way for you to send somebody a link to book. You don't need any ping pong with emails back and forth. You don't need to check diary. You just set it up and it's done. So all of these things can just do a little bit of lifting for you. And then across the board, that becomes heavy lifting. And actually your business is smooth, efficient, as automated as possible, and really standardized. I think a lot of people, I work predominantly with service providers and coaches, and most people try to reinvent the wheel every time a new client comes on board. They're trying to find the old emails, they're trying to do this, and they're recreating things from scratch. And actually, the magic with anything really is just standardizing. Everybody has the same package. Everybody gets the same welcome email. Everybody gets the same link to book a call. They all go through the same workflow. And ultimately, you delegate that to somebody else. You bring in a team member like a virtual assistant, an online business manager, somebody else that can, once you've got this process in place, take that off of your hands. And I think it's always tricky in the first instance, especially if you're just starting a business or, you're in the first year and money's tight, and it's always that time versus money thing. But I would suggest that as soon as you feel like you could bring a VA in for a couple of hours a month or put them on a small retainer, that is going to skyrocket your business, because you're actually able to then focus on revenue generating activities and visibility and marketing and serving your clients better, because you know that your business administration is being taken care of. So very much like I described the stepping of right, how do I step up with different stages of the child? What can I do? I would say that balancing the business is very much the same. It's right, taking on a new client. What can I do better this time? What can I do more efficiently? Is there better tech that I can use? All of these sorts of things will help build a business that can scale. We talked about 20K months, Lucy. If you want 20K months, it's absolutely possible. But the majority of people left their salaried roles and started a business because they wanted freedom. They wanted to be able to pick their kids from school. They didn't want to finish at 5 o'clock and put them in after school club. All of these things. That's probably nowhere near 20K a month that you need to bring in. So actually, if you focus on what you want to bring in or what you need, plus a little bit of what you want, you've got the ability to scale. Maybe as the kids get older, they need a little bit less from you. And actually in the early stages, you can actually live the lifestyle. Like we spoke at the beginning, I've moved to Spain now. The last thing I want to do is be behind my desk all day. So my business, one of my key performance indicators in my own business is, can I be at the school gates every day at 3:30? Because if I miss that for me is like, well, what's the point? Because that's the one thing that I said that I wanted to do. And, yeah, I might make more money, but actually, is that worth Ollie coming out of school going, where's mummy? So that is really important to me. So building that lifestyle first business, that is crucial. What do you want out of your business? How can you get there easier and faster with tech platforms and a team and making things really lean and standardized? It doesn't matter whether you're selling a product, digital product, a service, coaching. It doesn't really matter what the output is. There's still so much in the back end that you can do. You can tell, I can talk about this for hours. This is my area of expertise, but there's so much that you can do in your business. And I think most people don't know what's available to them because they're not from that self-employed business world. Most people might step out of an employed role and then they're like, I'm good at that thing, I'm good at that thing that I do. That's my sort of zone of genius. But actually running a business, that is totally new. So making sure that you're learning and being really open to embracing tech if you're not used to tech, even just small elements in your business will help your business move forward much more.
Thank you. And then just to sort of finish on, Kate, I think that's a really great place to finish on, but you touched on it a little bit again with you've moved obviously from Yorkshire to Spain. That was quite a big jump. What made you decide to up sticks and leave firstly? And do you have any tips for parents that maybe are wanting to kind of consider expating abroad?
The thing I would say is, well, actually my story had a little pit stop in France for 2 years. So I left the UK 3 years ago. I say my husband, and at that point, my 18-month-old son, we left Yorkshire and we moved to France, and that was meant to be permanent. That was meant to be like the dream. My husband and I got married in France. We speak French. We met in France working. Like that was meant to be the dream, living in this beautiful farmhouse with sunflowers and stuff. And we did it. And then we realized this isn't our dream anymore. This is not this huge, like 30-year build up. And it was just like, this isn't what I want anymore. And I think this brings me on to the point that I want to make is that often we think moving abroad will be the answer to the problems in the UK. And I would suggest that what you should actually do is work out what your problems are. Is it that you're not spending enough time together as a family? Because that's often the thing that people think, oh, we'll move abroad, we'll go out to eat all the time, we'll be swimming, we'll have all of this lovely family time together. You could probably have that in England, but you're not prioritizing that. You're not choosing to have that. So moving abroad won't give you that. You have to still choose that. And this comes from, on a personal note, like my husband and I had, big conversations over the last few years. Raising a child has been incredibly stressful. And actually, we made sure that when we then moved from France to Spain, because we weren't quite happy in France, we were really explicit about the fact that these are the reasons we're not happy in France at that point. We can't just put a band-aid on it by moving country again. Like, what are the real issues that we're experiencing? And a lot of it was to do with stress. A lot of it was to do with what we were choosing to do with our time. Ollie was much younger then, so sleep was still like a massive issue or lack thereof. So I think moving abroad is wonderful. Yes, you will spend more, if you move to a hot country, you'll spend more time outside, you will swim, you'll probably save money overall because you're not having to, a lot of time in England, it's raining or the weather is much cooler for a lot longer. So you have to spend time inside doing things. And when you spend time inside doing things, you have to pay somebody for the privilege of being able to do something inside because they've got to cover their business. So whether you're going to play or, you're going to the cinema, these things add up. Whereas if you move to somewhere like Spain, yeah, you might spend the afternoon swimming, which is free if you're, you just go to the sea to swim. So you'll probably save money. But I think the biggest thing is lifestyle. Again, it always comes down to lifestyle of like, what do you actually want from your life? If you want a slower pace of life because you're feeling quite stressed in England, you want to be able to work for yourselves, those sorts of things, or you want to work remotely, then yeah, absolutely. It's the best move that you can make. For us personally, I can only talk from my experience. For us personally, it was the right move. It's so much warmer here. And for me, like being in a warm and sunny place really affects my mood. So being able to be outside and have sunshine and blue skies every day, feel instantly much happier. Like I could be doing exactly the same things, but I'd feel much happier about it. So that's a massive thing. Ollie is, he's going to grow up bilingual. He learns Spanish in school. So there's so many plus sides for it. You can go out to eat. It's pretty cheap to eat here. There's so many things that you can do. I think it's really important to work out, if you're moving with your partner, what do you want your life? Design the life, because that's the mistake that we did moving to France. The goal was moving to France. We'll move to France one day. We'll do this. And then we moved and we didn't really think what the life would be like once we got there. We got there and realized there's no childcare in the middle of the countryside. So for a whole year, Ollie was at home and we were juggling. I was doing mornings, my husband was doing afternoons. And that was it. Like, that was our life. It was the three of us and it was very quiet. And he's having speech and language delays now. So there's all sorts of like things that it's so much easier in hindsight to look back. But actually, if someone had said to me, like, make sure you know what your life is going to look like when you get there. Are you going to be able to go to the shops? Are the shops open? Are there cafes open? Are there more kids that you can go and meet? Are there groups that you can do? Is there childcare? All of these sorts of things. I didn't even consider. I just sort of thought, well, but we'll move to France. That'll be the goal. So when we moved from France to Spain, we'd learned all of our lessons that we needed to. And we knew that this move, we moved to a much busier place, which my husband and I would never normally choose to do because we like quiet. But actually, we'd gone far too extreme quiet in France and we wanted some life again. We wanted Ollie to grow up with kids around him, those little things that he didn't have in France. So, yeah. Definitely think what you want your life to be like and then find the right place for you. It might not be Spain, it might be somewhere else, but there's so many amazing places that you can move to. Then you've got to deal with the visa process and all of these sorts of things and moving your business abroad probably. But, I've done it and I've done it twice in France and Spain. It's doable. It's going to cost you a few £1,000s each time you do it. So try and only do it once, but it's all doable. So a lot of people think they want to move to Spain or they want to move abroad and they're like, oh, but I couldn't. And my question to people is, why couldn't you? Like, you probably can, but there's just so many things that you think wouldn't work or you haven't got the answers to. But if you can make it work, for me personally, it's the best place I could have chosen. I love it here.
And that's going back to the limiting beliefs that you were talking about earlier, actually, that, we can have limiting beliefs in so many areas of our lives. Like you say, if you want to move abroad and you think you can do it, but then something in the back of your head's going, no, you can't do it. You can do it. It's just you telling yourself that you can't. There's nothing that you can't do, especially as parents. That's kind of the whole point of the show, is that we, I think parents are very hard on ourselves generally for no reason, actually. And like you said, it's only the good parents that, it's only the good parents that think they're doing bad, I think, is the saying.
It was a guilt thing, wasn't it? It's
that's it.
You're even wondering if you're a good parent, you probably are. Because
the other ones don't care.
And I think that's really true. It's just, and I think limiting beliefs, I'm by no means a mindset coach. I would consider myself not woo in any way, but 4 years of bringing up a baby and birthing a business at the same time, it has been like the best and worst personal development journey that I've ever been on. And I have come out of it like a different person. I've grown up a lot and I'm much stronger. And actually being able to say, well, I can move abroad or I can do those things. I need to find out how to do it. But you can do anything. A lot of it just comes down to money and being bold enough to say that you can do it. Can you move to Spain now from the UK to France with €500 in your pocket? No, because the visa is going to cost you more. So it's, there's certain things that you have to get in the right order. You have to get your ducks in a row, but you can get your ducks in a row, but you have to choose to do that and make sure that it's going to work for every member of your family that you're bringing with you. Because, we worry about our kids, but they have a brilliant time abroad most of the time, especially if they're young. Like, the time to do it is when they're young. If you can go out and eat in the evenings for cheaper than you can in the UK, and it's pretty much always sunny, like, you'll probably have a much happier life abroad as well. But you won't see your family all the time. There's disadvantages to it. So it's weighing up what you want your life to work, how you want your life to work, and then going forward with what you want. But I do think life is by design to a certain extent. And I say that with caution because there's a lot of privilege involved as well. But I've always worked for my money. And I think we have to be really careful with that kind of thing because there is privilege involved. I've always been married. We've always been very supportive of each other. If I'm not working, he's working and vice versa. So we've always been able to sort of like hop around like that. My husband was working when I was needing to start my business. So there was money coming in. There wasn't that pressure on me that to make it work immediately. I'm always very transparent about privilege, but I think most of the time you can make it work.
Lovely. Thank you so much for coming on, Kate. It's been lovely to talk to you. Do you just want to tell people where they can come and find you on social media and any promotions or anything that you're running, anything like that? That'd be great.
Yeah, so my business is named after my son. So my son is Oliver. So my business is Olivier, the French version, Olivier Consultancy. So if you type that into Instagram, Olivier Consultancy, you will find that's where I hang out most of the time on Instagram. I'm dabbling with TikTok, Lucy, but I can't really get that sorted. But yeah, Instagram is where like I hang out and I'm on stories all the time. And you can find me on my website as well, which is olivier-consultancy.co.uk. I would love to tell you about my retreat. So if you are thinking about moving to Spain, or you love the idea of coming out to Spain to work on your business for the week, it's top of my mind at the minute because my first one is happening next week. I've got people flying over from the UK to join me on Monday to all work on their businesses in a beautiful private villa with a swimming pool. There's a private chef, and we're working on a business strategy for the week, all under the Spanish sun. So I do all sorts of things, but the retreats I know are going to be absolutely transformational. I also do consultancy, and I sell templates and sort of mini courses if you're in that DIY stage as well. All different things available. Always come and drop into my DMs. I'd love to have a chat with anybody and guide you in the right direction.
Thank you so much again, Kate. And I will put all of Kate's links and details on the retreats as well in the show notes for anyone that's listening that's interested. So yeah, thank you again for coming on. It's been lovely to talk to you, and we will see everyone for the next episode of For All Stages and Ages. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.